the voice of a new generation. You're listening to KIC Radio.
Hello and welcome back to the South Bank podcast. This is episode 21 now, after a brilliant Wolves result away at Ipswich Town that pretty much secures our Premier League status for next season. And barring a nightmare rather than a miracle, we are all expecting to be here next season, aren't we, Jacob?
Yeah, we definitely are. I think even if we had have potentially lost that game against Ipswich, we still probably went into that game assuming we're more than pretty much safe, but Saturday really put the ice on the cake, and I think in excellent fashion, as we'll go on to talk about.
Yeah, completely agree. What I found interesting this week is seeing the reactions of all the bottom three fan bases to that result, and they all are just accepting the fact they're gone now. Sad in a way to see all the promoted teams come back up, but when it's at our game, I'm not really that bothered. No. So getting into the game itself, Liam Delap opened the scoring after a pretty 50-50 opening 15 minutes, I'd say. I think there was chances going both ways. Quite an end-to-end game, I thought. And Delap opened the scoring after an Ipswich set piece. O'Shea was screaming for the ball at the back post, and he headed it across goal for Delap to hit a classic poacher's finish. Jacob, what were your thoughts on the opening goal from Delap, man who's been in brilliant form all season?
I actually thought the first goal was starting to come against the other play a bit. I think Ipswich started the first 5 minutes and really got at us. I remember weirdly Ben Johnson getting a lot of freedom down that right-hand side, as well as, was it Nathan Broadhead playing on the left? Also filling quite a bit of space, and we're thinking, oh, here we go, they're flying up the blocks. But once we start to get a foothold on the game, we start to see players like Dalgard finding that space, and Aitnor, he was getting himself in the right positions, but quite wasteful with the ball. But it was still mostly Wolves until that goal, where it was the way Ipswich were going to score, wasn't it, off a set piece. Obviously a training ground routine where O'Shea, who, as much as I don't know, it was a footballer, I thought was actually very good on Saturday, barring a mistake in the second half, where he headers the ball back, and Delap, he does get in between Agbadou and Totti quite poorly, I think. A very rare dig at Agbadou there, probably. But that's what Delap does, isn't it? That's what he's made a living off, and we learned from it, to be fair, because they tried the exact same thing again a few minutes later, and it was cleared away by Agbadou. So I think we were unfortunate to go 1-0 down, and it was a nice almost feeling of, we were sat watching it, and I immediately said to you tonight, there's no way we don't score in this game. So there was almost a new sense of feeling the Vitor Pereira there.
Yeah, I completely agree. The whole atmosphere around the club has changed. You don't any longer expect us to just sit back and watch a team beat us, or us not scoring a game. That doesn't even feel like a possibility these days. Honestly, I do still feel we're playing a lot better as a team now. And we'll see how that goes when a certain Brazilian comes back. But O'Shea was instrumental at the other end a few moments later. A Wolves corner. Weirdly, Aitnouri taking the corners from the right-hand side of the pitch. I know me and you both mentioned that while watching, Jacob. Feeling it should have been the other way around, with the in-swingers instead of the out-swingers. But it almost paid dividends with Totti's, I'm not even sure whether to call it a header. I don't know if he realises it's bouncing in off him onto the goal line, but O'Shea is there to block it. Palmer's nowhere near it. He's the other side of the goal being occupied by Strand Larsen, I think it might be. And yeah, O'Shea just about manages to get it away. Did you think we were going to score here at all?
Yeah, I actually was out of my seat thinking the ball had gone in. I thought that we'd scored. Again, very good by Dan O'Shea on the line to deny us, but it was like this. It backed up my point of we're going to score. Ipswich's defence so shaky, so easy to break through, even when we weren't at our perhaps best. And I think it paid dividends to that point of who came on and managed to change the game, and just how much space we were having in that final third and how much it suited a certain player that came on in the second half. I'm sure we'll get to.
Yeah, alluding to some of the tweaks made by Vitor Pereira there. I do completely agree with you, though. Ipswich just looked incredibly shaky all game, I thought. Every attack, they seem to be scared of us, scared of our quality. And I'm sure you can say that for every team Ipswich have really faced in the Premier League this season, except Chelsea, of course. However, yeah, I thought Ben Johnson playing on the right hand side was probably to help deal with Ait Nouri as well as Belgar being on that side, despite the injuries to Omari Hutchinson as well, who I think is just a huge, huge loss for Ipswich.
Yeah,
He definitely
definitely.
would have threatened our back line a lot more than any of the other players on that pitch were able to. But yeah, the next incident was certainly one that grabbed the attention of many who aren't watching Wolves at Ipswich. A rare sight in top division football these days, an indirect free kick came about because of a back pass to Palmer, who then has to claw it off his line to stop him going in after he misses his touch. How are you, a Premier League keeper, not able to touch the ball and almost let it into your own net? But I would not have complained. That would have made it 1-1 very early on. But, however, he claws it away and the ref gives an indirect free kick. Do you remember the last time you saw one of these, Jacob?
No, but it was brilliant, wasn't it? I hope we see it a bit more because it was absolute box office football, I think. There, Palmer, you can tell who he used to play for with absolute shambolic. What are you doing in that situation there? But yeah, we said to you it was like NFL, like the offensive team
Yeah.
lined up facing the defensive team with 11 Ipswich players on the line. A near impossible task of getting it through. We give it to Agbadu, who, yeah, probably the right option because he's still absolutely thunder a certain word. I'm not going to continue towards the goal. But yeah, I mean, you're trying to get a ball through a hole that's probably about that big in all the 11. So, but wow, what a weird thing to witness. And yeah, they get away with it. Morty's getting up like he's won the World Cup after just making a block against a guy who is a centre back, and you have 11 players on the line. But hey ho, there isn't much to shout for them, is there? So must have been their best thing.
Yeah, definitely must have been Ipswich's best thing considering the end result. This was their cup final, really, and we didn't really care. It didn't mean as much to us after our recent results. Sorry, Ipswich Town fans, if any of the five of you are listening. Yeah, Agbadu, I'm not sure I agree with him taking the indirect free kick. I was also thinking potentially, what if we played it a bit further back to the edge of the area, as some of the players would have then rushed off their line and maybe it would have opened up a bit more space in the goal. However, yeah, 11 players on the goal line. Palmer getting booked as well during it being about to be taken. I personally would have rather seen Strand Larson take it, just because I feel like our number 9 is going to be able to provide the better finish instead of rather Agbadu just powerhousing that ball. However, yeah, we failed to take the opportunity, and I think the game is so back because we are having this opportunity at all. We need more interesting things like that in football. It feels like it's become so robotic, especially with the recent bans of showboating being banned in Brazil. What is this? What is this? Utter woke nonsense. But yeah, the next event in the game, really, for Wolves was João Gomez. It feels like that man is here, there, and everywhere. I got home and I actually saw him in my shower. Then I went in the kitchen and he was doing my dishes. That's how crazy his heat map is. But yeah, João Gomez powering an effort past Palmer, but it just hits the post and comes back wide. And the rebound, I'm not sure who got it, but it's hit just over the bar.
Gomez again, wasn't it?
And no, it wasn't for the second one. But yeah, João Gomez recently, he's been popping off a lot more shots than he used to. I remember when he first signed, that man was never striking the ball at all. But it feels like he's getting in a lot of scoring positions, I feel, nowadays, Jacob. Would you agree?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think adapted with Andre there, a bit more of a box to box thing, playing more of that eight that he truly is. Um, been certainly unlocked with Andre next to him, but he carries the ball so well into these dangerous positions, which allows him to shoot or lay off a pass. And I think, wow, yeah, Zhao definitely a player that's grown in confidence during his time at Wolves. Um, I remember saying to you, I will say that I had stocks in this bloke since the moment he got here, telling you and I mean you bought into it, but more my dad, if he's listening to this, when he was saying very well football, I was telling him he's going to be incredible for Wolves. And he turned out to be that way. But wow, how fortunate are we to have that midfield pairing of Andre and João Gomez.
Yeah, it feels like we're preaching their names every week, but how can you not when you've got two of the Brazil starters in your squad while sitting 17th in the Premier League? Yeah, João Gomez. I remember us saying initially when he signed, that bloke's got a higher ceiling than Ruben Neves probably. And while it was a very hot take at the time, I actually think we might get proved right. I think he's already nearing the levels while being a completely different sort of player. João Gomez's dribbling is ridiculous, and this license to go and attack now that Andre gives him certainly creates so many opportunities with how many people he can take on at once. We saw that in the West Ham game last week with his one dribble as well. And it's just creating so many more opportunities and it makes the most of his technical ability. But yeah, enough of João Gomez. Andre, like you just mentioned, a 97% pass completion rate on Saturday. That is just ridiculous in the top division of the Football League.
Yeah, a ridiculous stat that just seems like a normal day for Andre. Um, probably won't even put it in his top three performances this season, but he was still fantastic. Obviously, that Newcastle game, he comes in had 100% pass completion. So this is just a normal day
It's just a joke.
for that bloke. Ridiculously good footballer. Um, has an eye for the camera as well, apparently. So all round special footballer, special man. Love him.
Exactly the type of player we need more of at this football club. Just phenomenal. Anyway, Vitor Pereira made a few substitutions in this game. Initially, which I don't think we agreed with at the start. We were keen to see Ait Nuri go off, who I don't feel was playing that well. I feel like he was getting caught out quite a bit on that right-hand side. As you mentioned at the very start, I didn't think he was doing enough to drive forward in attack, but it was Jean-Rick Bellegarde and Matt Doherty who made their ways off the pitch. Obviously, Wolves changing to the system of a back four, which proved to really help put more pressure on that Ipswich back line. Yeah, I would have taken off Manetzi and Ait Nuri myself, but we know what Manetzi does in Vitor Pereira's own words, and that is he allows Strand Larsen to play, and he certainly did that. As yeah, he gets on the end of a brilliant ball. I can't recall who from. I think it may have been from Totu. But Strand Larsen gets on the end of it in the box, holds up the ball well from 2 or 3 markers, and then an excellent dink outside to the edge of the box, which finds Pablo Sarabia, who at the second time of asking after a rebound from his first attempt, provides a great finish into the bottom right-hand corner. And the Spaniard, with his signature substitute appearance of the season, where he just turns that game around. Jacob, what were your thoughts on this first goal for Wolves?
I mean, wow, Vitor Pereira is certainly proving why he's the manager and me and Cameron Gorman are not. Because although we both said that Sarabia missed the game, he should be introduced, I said it half time. And that was backed up by the space he got. I was quite annoyed by seeing Jornik the Bellegarde be brought off, which, wow, what world are we living in where Joshua Brooks is not someone who should get brought off. But wow, yeah, it turned out to be the right deal. As you say, Manetzi unlocks Larsen. Not just Larsen, gives so much space to players like Sarabia, who that's why I said he'd thrive on this game. He'd have that space that he had for that first goal. But yeah, back four. definitely gives a new level going forward. Ipswich were not even looking to try and bother us in this second half, I don't think. Liam Delap, did he touch the ball? I know he touched Semedo when he was trying to push him and then got absolutely bodied by Agbadou. But that's about it, really. Yeah, but brilliant goal. Sarabia, like you say, his cameo appearance of the year where he did it against Tottenham, did the same here. But he proves that he is a good footballer, but might just get caught in the cracks at times because of a lack of physicality. But games like this certainly does thrive. But you mentioned Manetzi, and there's something I'd like to say with this bloke. Being subject to some very unfair abuse online, I believe. Certainly by our own fans, which, if we're complaining about a bloke who's, in my eyes, playing well, then my God, we haven't got anything to complain about. Certainly not the most technically gifted footballer in the world, but a player where if you're going to lose a Mateus Cunha, you're not going to replace him. So why not give someone who's going to give 150% and get in the positions to unlock players like Strand Larsen a chance? You don't need every player being a beautiful footballer like Mateus is. You need players like Marshall who are going to, if you excuse the pun, Marshall the other team and get you into spaces that you're going to score off, and that's what he does. So yeah, I think if you're a Wolves fan who is giving unfair abuse to Marshall Netzi, I think you really need to consider what the team needs at this current time.
Yeah, I do completely agree. I think some of the criticism is completely unwarranted. At the end of the day, he's come in the January window. He's not had a pre-season to adapt to the tactics like the rest of this squad. Yet he's completely changed the way we play as a team. Like you said, allowing these players to have their creative licenses, and Sarabia and Strand Larsen to get more space to actually put the ball in the net, which we knew was his good quality as is, where he lacks in certain other aspects of his game. I don't agree with this criticism at all. And like you said, I just think it shows we have nothing to complain about. Things are suddenly going well for us when that is the complaint. And like you said, he always gives 150%. And I think that's exactly what we need more of. Less technical ability is not a concern to me when a player is non-stop running and they will give their all till they are off the pitch, instead of the highest walking player in the Premier League in Mateus Cunha. Anyway, 2-1 should have been the score from this next opportunity. A brilliant ball from Rodrigo Gomez, who I was absolutely ecstatic to see back on the pitch on Saturday after a long spell out from injury. I think it had been a month. But wow, what a footballer. He excites me every time he gets the ball. I think he's just such a brilliant young talent, and we will see so much of him next season. I think he'll be one of the players who really steps up in the absence of some of these who are going to be leaving, like your Sarabias and your Mateus Cunhas. And I just hope we don't bring in too many players in that area so that he still lacks game time, because I think we have a real gem on our hands in Rodrigo Gomez. However, I don't think Fosun will exactly be loose with the purse strings anyway. So a brilliant ball from the right-hand side that curls over the top of all the defence to Jürgen Strand Larsen, who fails to capitalise it. He just can't get over the ball well enough to score. But a brilliant opportunity for went begging, I thought, that was cut from a lot of the highlights.
Yeah, you put it perfectly. Just didn't get over the ball enough, Jürgen. Thankfully, spoiler alert, as we know, did go on to get his goal in the end, so it doesn't really count for anything. But yeah, you mentioned Rodrigo Gomez, once again showing a talented footballer there, a fantastic ball in, and a big chance, like you say, that went a begging and not really picked up on as such. But at this point, it truly did look like there was only one team that was going to go on and win it, didn't it? So we just continued the pressure, and it turned out to pay off, thankfully.
Completely agree. Wolves were certainly in the driver's seat by this point. But just one more comment on Rodrigo. I thought he did excellently when he switched sides for the last few minutes as well. A really two-footed footballer. I just can't praise him more enough. But as you alluded to, Jurgen Strand Larsen, the Norwegian did get his goal, his fourth goal in 3 games. And this man is just on fire, really stepping up to replace Mateus Cunha recently. And just phenomenal goal scoring form, which we knew he had in his locker. And while it feels like at times earlier in the season, especially, he's lacked hold up play, he's lacked physicality. He seems to be really bringing these elements into his game more recently. Would you agree?
Yes, in a way. I still think there's something to be desired from his all-round play, but you're going to certainly silence a lot of his critics, including myself, in the last few weeks. Like I say, still leaves a bit to be desired, I do believe, in the hold-up play. But as a number 9 goes, you can't ask for much more than a bloke who's going to score you 11 goals and a bloke who's always going to be a presence in that 6-yard box. So, yeah, really coming into his own, Jorgen.
3 goals off Raul Jimenez, most Wolves goals in a debut season now. A number which shockingly looks very beatable now, with the amount of games we still have to play. But Jurgen Strand Larsen, he gets his goal from being in the right place at the right time, similar to Delap's in a way, with that poacher's instinct being shown. A brilliant ball coming to Sarabia on the right-hand side from Andre with a ridiculous ping over. The typical football we expect from the Brazilian. And what vision from Sarabia to use his left foot from there to still manage to squeeze it across goal. And Strand Larsen, just the easiest goal he will score in his life as a number 9. And from then, we all knew what was going to happen. Ridiculous celebrations in the Wolves end, as we knew that was Premier League status secured. Andre having some fun himself, taking a fan's phone. And I'm sure we've all seen the video by now. Absolutely crazy celebrations from the Brazilian, who I don't think has picked up a camera before in his life, by the looks of it. But yeah, and from then on, Wolves just didn't need to do anything else. Ipswich did not threaten remotely, and it was 2-1 Wolves at Portman Road. So, Jacob, how did you feel to see the full-time scenes? Ipswich fans obviously devastated, emptying out as they realise they're down. But for us in the Old Gold, absolute pandemonium.
Yeah, it was. It was a goal that, in hindsight, just shows the quality that we have over Ipswich. Like you mentioned, a ridiculous ball from Andre to Slavia, who does very well to open his body up, something that I wouldn't see an Ipswich player doing. And putting it across goal for Larsen, the celebrations, like you say, oh my God, wow, that away end truly erupting. And Andre, never seen a man so happy to see a camera, like you say. Wow, he was ecstatic, wasn't he? But yeah, that just shows stuff like Andre engaging the fans, Larsen engaging the fans, wearing glasses at the end. But there's really been a shift in the mentality of this football club in the last few months, where we were saying at times, especially under Gary O'Neill, that I've never felt so disattached to this club, to these players, to these owners, to this manager. Vitor has come in, really changed the fundamentals of this club, and I was reading the Johnny Phillips article where he said Vitor has simplified what we do at Wolves. He made football a simple game again, where Gary O'Neill almost overcomplicated it. Perhaps compensating for a certain lack of knowledge by trying to overestimate the knowledge he has, truly. Whereas Vitor has got a tune out of players, simply playing players in their right position, not trying to think outside the box, and it's certainly working so far. A really happy away and a really happy away travelling team, it seemed, full time, and that was just brilliant to see. Truly are safe now. Hopefully, we just enjoy the end of the season. It isn't like last season when the players begin to down tools when we know we're safe, because that would be the last thing we want. But I personally don't see it happen. I don't see Vitor allowing that to happen the way that Gary O'Neill did.
Completely agree with that. Gary O'Neill, he really did bring that poor form from the back end of last season when he seemed to just say to players, yeah, we're safe, have your holidays. And I feel like they went on them mentally. They must have been doing half intensity training or something, surely, because the start to this season was absolutely terrible. Like you mentioned, Gary O'Neill definitely, I feel, tried to overcomplicate his style of football. And I think we've seen this lack of connection between the club, staff, and the fans and the owners between the last few managers, going back to Lopetegui as well. And I think it really just started with Bruno Lage as well, if I'm honest. After Nuno, obviously a very outgoing, connected manager who we all know the quality of, and it's all apparent to see this season with Nottingham Forest, unfortunately. But yeah, I just feel since Nuno, we've not had a manager who's tried to bring back this fan connection, as we saw at West Ham with Vitor and his staff getting suspended for this game because they're running outside the technical area, getting the fans to go crazy, getting a tune out of the Billy Wright. I just think it's exactly what we've needed for a long, long time. And like you said, that mentality shift in the team, I really feel like they're going to take it into the next season. And while most Wolves fans will be hoping the same, let's just see how this season rides out. Hopefully, we continue to keep picking up points and let's see where we go. We're not that far above the teams above us now. And what seemed very impossible earlier on in the season is now very, very possible. We could even see ourselves finishing above the likes of Spurs, West Ham, even Man United. While I feel like we could probably finish above West Ham and Spurs personally. And I feel like we could come like 16th, 15th. However,
it's
let's
just nice
see how
to
it
start being
goes.
able to look. It's just nice to be able to start looking up. Never mind if we finish there or not. A season where it looked like we have took 17th at some point. We are perhaps getting a bit greedy trying to look up the table now, but it's truly a shift here. Picked up the most points since February, aside from Arsenal and Liverpool, obviously in a title race. Obviously, they've won one foot over the line already, but but a real shift in the mentality. You can just see by Vitor got back from Ipswich, a long drive, and immediately going out in Wolverhampton and being pictured outside of Weatherspoons, being pictured outside of multiple pubs. It seemed like a call between him and Lewis Miguel. But engaging with the fans, and that's just as a one club city, that's how it should be. That's how it should mean to the fans. It should mean to manage a football team like Wolverhampton Wanderers, who we are so rich in history. We are a working man's club, and he's in these working man's pubs, and that little stuff like that just adds so much to the character of Vitor Pereira that I'll be honest, I fell in love with. It's the verdict's there now. It took me a while to settle down on it, but we have fell in love with this man, and it feels like you don't want to jinx it, but the good days might be back on the corner.
Yeah, definitely don't want to jinx it. I feel like I've said that for every other one of our recent managers at a certain point. However, Vitor Pereira has restored that feel-good feeling to the West Midlands. And honestly, I completely agree. I think it shows an integration with the culture of the club, an integration with the city, and the fact he cares about the fans enough to go talk to them, go have pints with them, and really connect with them on a lifestyle level as well as the club they have in common and love. Um, I was initially very harsh of the appointment of Vitor Pereira, I will admit. I was a bit concerned to see us going for a manager from the Saudi League. I thought that was quite a worrying appointment with how low his release fee was as well. And the news articles I'd read from his history at certain past employers, especially in Brazil, with saying he's going to visit his sick mother and then leaving for one of the other biggest clubs. Let's just hope he's not doing that next season with your Spurs or Man United's provided a sacking. However, I don't see that happening. I think Vitor really does have a connection with us. And while the jury was out from the get-go, I have to agree. I've fallen in love with Vitor Pereira, so to speak. And I think he's really brought back an identity to this team, an identity to this club, and a connection to the fans, which are all the recipe for Premier League survival as well as future success when you look at it. But things are not all bright. Some bombs from John Percy dropped on Twitter this morning as some news has broken out regarding Nelson Semedo, the club captain, one of our most consistent performers over the last few seasons, I feel, and Pablo Sarabia, that man who provided the stunning cameo on Saturday against Ipswich, are both set to leave the club this summer at the expiration of their contracts. Jacob, what do you think about this news?
Whilst it's hardly shocking news, it still comes with a bit of weight to it. This is going to be the third transfer window in a row where we've lost our captain. But it's no surprise, seeing as these are the two highest paid players at the club, bar Mateus Cunha, who obviously recently signed a new contract and will also be out the door in the summer, you do imagine. Yeah, and we speak about the good times coming back, and it's an immediate drop down to earth if these are still our owners. These are owners who are trying to be self-sustainable for themselves, who are going to cut ties with, rightly or wrongly, the highest paid players at the club. I think Sarabia has done enough to put a brighter stint on his spell at Wolves, where he perhaps struggled for a couple of seasons. Definitely been his best season this season, especially the latter half. Whether that's playing for a move or not, he's done enough to not leave a bad taste in his mouth, but probably a time for him. Semedo's a disappointing one for me. Someone who, yes, did take a while to find his feet at Wolves, but once he did, has been one of our most consistent performers, getting player of the year. Was it last season or the season before?
Yeah, last season.
So, yeah, to let him go on a free is relatively disappointing. Whether that was the goal the whole time, have a season where Rodrigo goes and Pedro Lima learn off Nelson and then come into the role. But, yeah, it's disappointing when other players in the team you'd rather see cashed in on, the likes of Wang, potentially. I know we like him, but Tommy Doyle isn't getting a game, isn't going to get a game in this midfield. I'd probably rather cut their two ways and keep Semedo. If we want to have that self-sustainable model and still be competitive in the league. So yeah, the Semedo one disappoints me, the Slaby one I understand essentially.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Nelson Semedo, since he came in, he's just been so consistent once he found his feet. And he's always dropping a minimum 7 out of 10, if not higher. And I think he's criminally underrated amongst football fans as a whole. Forget just our fan base, which astounds me when he's achieving Player of the Season last year and becoming club captain. This isn't for no reason. This is a man who was at Barcelona and Benfica, two of the biggest clubs about in European football. And he's proving why. Nelson Semedo, we only really got him because of one game going wrong in his Barcelona career, which we're all very aware of. But yeah, I don't think it's the right decision to let him go. I do feel that we're going to miss him next year. I think we'll have to bring in a new right back, but I'm also not sure we will, with Pedro Lima and Rodrigo Gomez waiting on that bench to take over. And while I'm a big fan of both of these players, they're incredibly young. And Nelson Semedo, his experience shows in the way he plays, especially now. And it's just got more and more like that for him. Sarabia, I do agree. I feel like the Premier League was never his style of football. I think he was always bound to leave Wolves one season or the other. And I do agree. He's probably had the best season of his Wolves career, and he will leave without a sour taste in anyone's mouths. I think Sarabia is one of those where he's not playing well enough for us to be annoyed or angry at him for leaving, but he can leave happy and we can happily let him leave. with the way he's been playing. He's giving 100%, putting himself about and chipping in with goals and assists as well. Mateus Cunha, also his agent, is rumoured to be flying over to England to discuss transfer deals. Jacob, what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so reporting yesterday, coming from TalkSport, that Mateus Cunha's agent has flown over to England to have face-to-face discussions with Premier League clubs. Man United are set to be the most interested, with Mateus's release clause currently at 62.5 million. Look, we all know Mateus is going to be going this summer. There's probably like 1% of hope to keep Mateus at this football club. But yeah, personally, I'd rather not see Mateus go to another English club. I'd rather see him go elsewhere. But the reality of it is, he's in the prime of his career. He's going to want to be in the Premier League, and Man United are, as poor as they may be, the biggest club in England. They just are. It's simply a fact. So that will naturally be a draw for Mateus. Also, a system with Amorim where I feel he would fit in perfectly. However, there's such a toxic culture at Manchester United, and I think United fans will be the first to admit that themselves, where there are tendency to ruin players. And even though we've had our our disputes about Mateus with his attitude, which I again think doesn't cater to Man United at all. I think he's a player I don't want to see ruined. He's a player who, despite his attitude, did keep us up this season, if we're being logistic. I know we've won the last 3 games, sorry. Haven't lost without him. We've proved we can do it without him, but my God, he's going to be a benefit to any team he goes to. And I think the next 48 hours, 72 hours will be big. We'll hear a lot more clubs in discussion with Mateus' agent. Keep your eye on Fabrizio Romano, because Mateus' agent has made very clear he likes to get Fab to push a narrative out there, which I'm personally not a fan of. I'm not a fan of this agent-led kind of journalism, but it's the way of the world these days. But yeah, that's my 2 pence on it, really. We're going to see what happens in the summer. I reckon Mateus, his party should be on Sunday when he returns to action for Wolves.
I completely agree. I'm interested to see if Cunha, amidst all this transfer speculation, if he starts on Sunday, for the Spurs game. I personally think he should start off the bench. I don't think he should be coming straight into that team off the back of the brilliant hard work from the squad in the games he's been absent. And while he's saying he wants to win trophies and getting himself sent off before we have the chance to go to an FA Cup quarter final, I thought that was very disappointing from him and kind of goes against his own beliefs, if you will. That's my 2 pence on it. However, let's look ahead to Spurs. Jacob, what do you think about Wolves, who are in hot form, the third most informed team in the league behind Arsenal and Palace after Liverpool's loss to Fulham? A very inconsistent Spurs side under Ange Postecoglou this season.
I mean, yeah, look, the headlines are going to be surrounding Mateus Cunha's return. Just quickly on that, I agree with you that he should start off the bench because, you can't reward behaviour like that. But at the same time, I understand Vitor Pereira will have a selection headache simply because of the quality that Mateus Cunha possesses. Do you leave a player like that out, despite how well we've done without him? But it's down to Mateus now. He has to really back up what he said on that video, where he still loves this club, or whatever it was he was trying to put across in that video, but didn't really help himself. But for the game itself, I think Tottenham, a dreadful season for them. I think any Spurs fan will tell you it's been a long, long ride for them. However, still a team that possess a lot of quality, still a team that at any day can turn up and hurt any team. I remember they beat Liverpool in the Carabao Cup semi-final in the first leg. Obviously, the second leg didn't go their way. Beating Man City 4-0 this season. And a good win just this weekend. I know it's against Southampton, but still a game where they look dangerous. It's still going to breathe confidence into them coming into this game. So, yeah, I think while it's a game that's certainly winnable for us, while it's a game that I think the Molyneux crowd will be very up for, being on a Sunday, and our recent form. Vitor will be back on the touchline for this game, I believe, along with Luis Miguel. So, yeah, I think we have every chance of going to win, but I think this has the potential to be a very interesting game as neither team's played with pressure, but both teams will want to finish as high as they can desire. As we know, every place is a fair bit of money difference these days.
Yeah, I completely agree. Spurs, Brennan Johnson, a man who often likes to grab a goal against us, he got two on Saturday against Southampton, seemingly in red hot form at the minute. And Matthew Tell, the January acquisition, also scoring. A player I'm very interested to see against Wolves, as we've all heard about the quality he possesses at Leverkusen. I mean, Bayern Munich, not Bayer Leverkusen, forgive me. A very interesting profile on the Frenchman, and so talented, I think. And I imagine many Tottenham fans will want to see them purchase him permanently in the summer. And many unsung heroes in this Spurs 11 this season. You've got younger players such as Bergval, and then you've got players. He is very much quality. And then you've got players who may have been written off for their careers as a whole, with Brennan Johnson finding a niche at left back this season and being brilliant there, may I add. Where in the contrary, Jed Spence. Yeah, did I not say Jed Spence?
I said Brennan Johnson.
Oh my gosh. Long day. Yeah, Brennan Johnson at left back, sure, mate. Chuck him there. Hands really clutching at straws there. Yeah, Jed Spence really finding a niche for himself there at left back. Forgive the error. And then, yeah, some players who would have been expected to step up, such as Son, not hitting the same heights this season, seemingly falling off. Players such as Solanke, who are very important to Spurs, getting many injuries. There's a lot of reasons for where Spurs are sat where they are in the table. However, they are also, like United, still in with a chance of Champions League this season, as they could win the Europa League, which will 100% be their priority. I think Wolves will turn up and probably give Spurs a run for their money, but I do see this one being a draw off the back of Spurs' result against Southampton being a very positive one for them. I'm going to say personally it's going to be 1-1 or 2-2. I think there'll be a lot of goals from two teams who are finding the back of the net quite frequently recently. However, if one team were to win it, I do think it would be us.
Yeah. You mentioned the Europa League. Obviously, they play Frankfurt this week, which many people deem as a very tough draw for Spurs. Will be a hard one for them to get through. Although Frankfurt losing this weekend to Werder Bremen, conceding to Oliver Burke, which is showing that there are chinks in that armour. But I think Wolves could potentially benefit off Spurs playing Europa League either side of this fixture. I think that will be their priority, as you say. Their only real metric into European football next season, as it has been such a poor season for Spurs. But yeah, I'm going to put a prediction on it. I'm going to say we're going to have a brilliant game Sunday. I'm going to back a 3-2 Wolves win. I think we'll see a very exciting game, and I think that we'll have just enough to get over the line. I think the Molyneux crowd will just get us over that line, and I think it's written in the stars, isn't it? After we've all been saying we don't need him for a Mateus Cunha winner off the bench or something, very late on.
I certainly would not mind that for the entertainment factor. A 3-2 thriller predicted by Jacob here at Molyneux. Let's just hope Wolves get that win over the line. However, yeah, Spurs' priorities will be in Europe. So hopefully that works to our advantage. But I don't think that leaves us with a lot to talk about this week. And I think that will wrap us up. So, as always, thank you for listening. We appreciate you all listening here at the South Bank Podcast. Stay keen onto our social media, as we will be providing updates throughout the week as to episodes. But with that, we will leave you here, and we will see you after we have played Tottenham next week. I'm Cameron Gorman. I've been your host this week, and I've been with Jacob Jones. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.
Goodbye.
The voice of a new generation. This is KIC Radio.